Today, for the very first time, I am finally going to be listening to the brand new Soilwork album. This is Övergivenheten, or something like that. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. If you've never seen a video like this on my channel before, know that what I'm going to do is take the CD, put it in my computer, listen to the thing all the way through from front to back for the very first time, while talking over the music, giving you my thoughts on what I'm hearing for the first time. Now, being an audio engineer, having worked on my own music projects, things like that, and just overall given my musical taste, what I'm going to probably be talking about the most is what I'm hearing music-wise, the different, production things that I'm hearing, the different engineering techniques or mixing techniques that were used to create all the sounds. I'm not a very big lyric guy, though I will say that I have read a lot of the lyrics that are in the songs in this album. And so, I may talk about some of the lyrics a little bit, but don't expect too much of that. And also be aware that I'm going to probably be talking over the music really for like a vast majority of the album. So if you haven't heard this album before, I recommend maybe listening to it yourself first. If you're not a fan of Soilwork already and you want to experience this album with me for the first time, that's awesome too. Along those lines, in the description of this video, you will notice that I have timestamps for all the different sections of the video, including each of the individual songs off the album. So what I'm going to do a little bit at the beginning of the video here is talk a little bit about Soilwork, how important they are to me as a band. I am a huge fan of Soilwork, so I'll just get that out of the way right away. This is not my first time listening to them. I am very familiar with this band, as you can tell by all the cool Soilwork stuff I have. But anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about Soilwork at the beginning and what they mean to me as a band, and then I'm going to listen to the album, and then after I'm done listening to the album, I will do my sort of overall thoughts or give my review, if you will. So you can skip to whatever part of the video you would like. If you want to hear my reaction to a specific song on the album, feel free to skip to that song, or if you just want to skip to the very end and hear what I thought of the album as a whole, feel free to do that as well. No big deal. I also want to mention at the beginning of the video here that it is my plan to use the actual audio from the CD, from the album, in this video. However, sometimes when I try to do that, my videos get completely blocked, and I have to go back through and sort of dismiss all of the editing that I've done so far, re-render the video with no music in it whatsoever. So hopefully, Soilwork is a very big band, but they are on Nuclear Blast, and I do believe that Nuclear Blast has a lot of really good relationships with reactors here on YouTube. I am just a very, very small channel, and so I don't know really how to deal with copyright stuff at all if any of those issues come up. So what I've done in the past is my issue for solving that is to purely just take all the music out of my video. So hopefully I'm able to upload this video so that you can actually hear the music along with me. If not, I will also include it in the description, and I'll include it regardless as well. I'll include in the description of the video a link to listen along with the album, to listen along with me, like on Spotify if I have to. And I'll just also include a link to buy it on Amazon, or maybe a link to purchase it from their website as well. So know that there will be different things like that in the description of the video. But I'm going to try as hard as I can to include the actual songs in this video so that you can hear along with me exactly what I'm hearing. So real quick, one thing I wanted to just say before I get to actually talking about Soilwork here is to mention the shirt that I'm wearing. Generally, I try to wear shirts or things that, I guess I don't have most of the bands that I do reactions to. I don't have a shirt for them because I've never seen them in concert, never gotten the opportunity to purchase a shirt from them before. Soilwork is a band that I've never been able to see live, and I'm not a huge fan of live music in general. However, there are certain bands that I would love to see eventually in my lifetime. Soilwork is definitely one of those bands. I think they've been to Nebraska, which is the state that I live in the U.S. I think they've been here in Nebraska a few times, but I've never gotten the opportunity to see them. But I wanted to mention my shirt anyway because I always, it's sort of silly, but I try to pick out a decent shirt to go with each of these videos that I do on my channel, and so far I've tried to do it without repeating a shirt. And so I decided to wear this shirt because this is another metal band's t-shirt, and I decided to just do this. This is probably the only time I'll do this on my channel, but I wanted to just plug this band. As you can see, Primal Waters. This is actually a metal band whose albums I helped produce, record, and edit. So I just wanted to kind of share that and say they're no longer a band. They made 3 albums, including a 4th album that's sort of a split with a different country artist that was a friend of theirs. But I am really good friends with the guys in this band, and I just wanted to shout them out. I've did these 3 albums with them. And you can look them up on Spotify. They should be there. They're on Bandcamp, I know. They should be. You can just look them up here on YouTube. They should be anywhere you can find music to just stream. But I highly recommend their third album and the most recent one that we did together, which is called Primogenitor. And of all the music projects I've worked on in my entire career, this is one of the things that I am the most proud of. And so I just wanted to like shout that out here and say, I know everyone watching this is going to be a metal fan because you're a fan of Soilwork. And so I'm going to play a little clip of one of the songs off here, my favorite song. I think I'll probably do Wrenching Gnashing, which is I think my favorite song off this album. I'm going to play a little clip here just so you can hear a second of it and just know, like, I helped produce, record, edit, do this whole thing, although I'm not in the band myself. No money from this or anything ever went for me. The guys in the band don't know I'm doing this. They have no clue or nothing. This is just something I'm very proud of that I worked on, and I wanted to share with everybody. So here's a little clip of that, and then we'll move on to Soilwork. So yeah, just go ahead and look that up if that sounded interesting to you. I'm really proud of how that turned out. I love the way that it sounds, and I would absolutely put the production quality of that album up against any metal record I've ever heard. I'm not saying it's the greatest album of all time or anything like that, and I'm not saying that it's the greatest, most well-recorded thing of all time, but I really think that we did a great job of making it sound professional, and the tiny, tiny budget that we had and the limited experience that we've all had doing these things, I feel like it really shined through our determination to make the best sounding album that we could. So check that out if you want to. Again, the band is called Primal Waters. Look it up if that sounded interesting to you. Now, one last thing I do have to say before I get into Soilwork is to just say that the last video I recorded for my channel here was for the new Muse album, Will of the People, and I was absolutely shocked with how amazing that album is, and if you want to hear my reaction to that, go check out my channel. Go check out that video here on my channel. But I have to say, in that video, I mentioned that one of the reasons I recorded that video on the day that I did was because I could feel my throat starting to hurt, and that my dad had had a cold for a few days before that. And so I just have to say that that was actually 2 weeks ago now, and in between that time, we found out that my father, who I live with my folks at the moment, my father had COVID, and I got COVID as well. And so I was planning to record this video about 2 weeks ago. I had everything set up to record the Muse video, and my plan was to record the Soilwork video the following day. And I just couldn't do it because I was so sick that day. That was the worst day that I had gotten it. It was the worst I've felt in many, many, many years. I was very, very sick. And even though I had both vaccination shots, I never did get the extra vaccination shot because I am a fairly healthy person, male, 35 years old, and I didn't want to take, the booster shot away from anyone that may have potentially needed it. So I never did get the booster. But both my parents got the original 2 doses of the vaccine shot, and then the booster as well. My mother has never got sick the entire time we had it. Again, it's 2 weeks later now. But my dad had it, and he had it for about 4 or 5 days. It affected him. I had it, and it affected me for about 7 days or so, the first 3 days of which were really, really, really bad. And I actually had a plan that I was going to come down here and record like a little diary for this video every day, just saying like COVID update, whatever, but I could really actually barely talk, and then for 2 days or so, I couldn't really talk that much without coughing at all. So I just want to shout out here and say, I know a lot of people have had COVID. I totally sympathize with those people, and if you haven't had it yet, and if you haven't gotten your shots, I would just urge you to think about getting the vaccine shots. I believe they are still free, but I got mine, last year, and I was lucky that I did, I believe, because I think with the amount of sick that I did get, I think it could have been significantly worse. So that's just my opinion on the flu shots. I think that they really helped me personally. So I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to just, sort of give a little bit of an explanation as to why this video is coming out later than I wanted it to. It's been actually really hard because the whole time that I was sick with COVID, I was thinking about this album, and I found myself going back and listening to a lot of the albums in Soilwork's catalog because I had the extra week and a half or so to do that. And so I actually took the CD out of this, or the booklet out of here, and I read almost the entire booklet from cover to cover multiple times while I was just kind of, laying around being sick. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to shout that out and to give you guys, I guess, a little bit of an explanation. Okay, so now to get into actual Soilwork proper. So the first thing I want to say is that Soilwork is an incredibly special and important band to me. And that's for a very important reason, and that is that they are one of the 5 metal bands that got me into metal. Now, when I was in high school, I was listening to all sorts of stuff, but mostly it was the stuff that was on the radio. But one of the things that I really did enjoy doing, and I think one of the reasons for this, is my liking of WWE and all the entrance theme songs, which were quite heavy. But I wouldn't say at the time, when I was in high school, that I was really listening to very much metal. I did enjoy bands like, Korn, Seven Dust, things like that were on the radio. And so I did enjoy those things. Powerman 5000 was one of my very first ever favorite bands. But if you know any of those bands, you know that they're not really metal, at least not like Soilwork is. And to me, my dumb, high school brain, I didn't know anything about that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I liked to do was get soundtrack albums and listen to them. And again, I think one of the reasons for that is all of the soundtracks that I got for all the wrestling theme songs. And a lot of the wrestlers were using very heavy rock or metal songs at the time. And even in the mid to late 90s, when I really was starting to get into music for the first time, wrestling theme songs really influenced my my direction in the music that I liked or did not like. And I really became comfortable with buying all these different soundtracks to get different varieties of artists and things. And then from the soundtracks, I would use those to sort of discover new bands. Now, you have to think, this is before the internet. This is before you could just listen to anything you wanted like you can now. It kind of actually hurts my soul a little bit knowing that it used to be the effort you had to go to purchase something, to find it, to listen to it, that made it more special. But anyway, the reason I'm getting into all this is to say that at a certain point, I purchased this album. This is the Headbangers Ball Soundtrack Volume 1. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this, what it is it's just a 2-disc set. I guess this comes out. It's a 2-disc set of a bunch of the heavy songs that were popular on MTV2 at the time when they would do their Headbangers Ball segment, which was basically just metal music videos for an hour, I think, or maybe 2 hours. And I like that stuff, and so I bought this probably at my local Walmart. And on this disc, and these 2 discs, actually all on the second disc itself, which is where I believe the heavier, more metal stuff actually is, I discovered 3 of those 5 bands that were really influential to me. And those 3 bands are track 3, In Flames, with the song Cloud Connected, track 11, Demon Hunter, with the song Infected, and then track 16, Soilwork, with the song Rejection Roll. Now, the other 2 bands, to just get them out there. So we've got In Flames, Soilwork, In Flames, Demon Hunter, and the other 2 bands for me that were really influential, that I also found through other soundtracks, possibly the Headbangers Ball Volume 2. Freddy vs. Jason was a big soundtrack that was influential to me, but all sorts of other things. The soundtrack to the movie The Cave. I love those kind of soundtracks. At that time, in the early 2000s, there was a lot of really good soundtracks with lots of good metal songs on there. But anyway, the other 2 bands, so we got Soilwork, In Flames, and Demon Hunter. The other 2 bands are a band called Musilek, which I really enjoyed, and was my introduction to like sort of more technical, sort of mathy, maybe sort of Meshuggah sounding stuff, though they're a fantastic band. I love all of their albums. But their second singer, Guillermo, actually passed away very recently, so that was kind of sad, I think, in the last year. But they hadn't been a band for many years before that. And the other band is a band from Denmark, I believe, called Ronji, who is actually one of my all-time favorite bands, any genre of music. So those 5 bands, Soilwork, In Flames, Demon Hunter, Musilek, and Ronji, were the bands that got me into it. And this particular album, this particular collection of songs, I discovered 3 of those bands. And so when I was in high school, I remember this day so vividly. For context, I live in rural Nebraska, in basically the middle of nowhere, and it's about 30 miles or so till the nearest sort of city where we go to get groceries and things. But it's an additional 20 or so miles to the nearest city. And because of the way my family is growing up and having both my grandparents, both sets of my grandparents, everyone from the Depression era and everything, just being used to, you don't go to town or to the city unless you absolutely have to. So we would only travel into the city a couple times every year. And I specifically remember knowing we were going to go to Lincoln. We were going to go to the big city. And I wanted to go to the record store there that was called Homer's Music. And I wanted to buy the new In Flames album, the one that I love so much, because they had two songs that I absolutely loved. One from this compilation, which was Cloud Connected, and the other from the Freddy vs. Jason soundtrack, which was their very famous song called Trigger. Love those two songs, and I can just clearly picture... Sorry about that. I've taken a test. I'm negative. Positive I'm negative, so I can't give you the virus through the screen or whatever, but if I have to have a cough drop, I will. I have one sitting off to the side. But anyway, what I was getting to was I remember going to Lincoln. I remember going to the big city, and I remember having my $20 in my pocket, and I remember thinking, I'm going to buy this In Flames album. We got to the store. I found the In Flames pocket, and it was empty. There was nothing in there. And I remember being very disappointed, and I remember thinking, like, if I have to wait till the next time we come here, because again, this is before the internet was really a thing that we could, you could really use to like search anything out. It wasn't like it is today where you can just search for any band and listen to their entire discography basically for free anywhere. I remember being disappointed and thinking, shoot. And before I decided to leave, though, I checked and I thought, what are some of the other bands off of this that I really enjoy? And Soilwork was the one that came to mind first. I went and checked. I looked in their pocket, and there was one album in there, and it was Figure Number 5. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a chance. I might not be back here for half a year or more. I'm going to buy this album, and I'm so thankful that I decided to do that. Figure Number 5 is one of my all-time favorite albums and is probably the most single influential album that I have heard in my life in terms of, dictating my musical taste. Now, I know that you as a Soilwork fan watching this video, you're probably thinking, Figure Number 5 is their worst album. It's their most poppy. That's when they sold out. It's their least heavy album. And, I get all of those things, but if you're like me and that was the first sort of, in, then you might have a soft spot for the album. And actually now, looking back on their entire catalog, I still really love all the songs on that album. I love the production. There are very few metal albums that are produced so clean and crisp like that album, but with a nice rounded, warm tone to the entire thing. It's a fantastic album. But anyway, I'm telling you this whole story so you sort of understand that Soilwork was a very, very, very important band to me. And after that, I've, using those 5 bands that I mentioned, I exploded into sort of enjoying all sorts of different types of metal. Okay, so I've been going off and on and whatever, and I don't even know how I'm going to edit all of this down into something that, makes sense. The whole thing I was trying to do was, the whole point of everything was I was trying to tell a story about how I found Soilwork. It was sort of a magical moment for me when I decided to buy that, and it's led me into this path of metal that I really enjoy. And so hopefully that comes through with everything. I've just been recording for 45 minutes, and I'm going to have to edit all that down into something, so who knows what's going to happen. But let's talk about Soilwork real quick before we get to their album. So, let me flip this stack over, because I don't think I have it in total order, but I believe I have everything that Soilwork has ever released. I've gotten it over time. A lot of the stuff I bought at the record store that I used to work at called Hastings Entertainment, I special ordered it, after the fact, years after it was already released. And I believe I did own at one point everything. However, one of my roommates that I used to live with when I worked at a recording studio in Omaha, Nebraska for a few years, he used to borrow my CDs, which I have an enormous CD collection, but he used to borrow some of the metal CDs, and he would listen to them in his car, and his car was very dirty and gross, and he would just take stuff and just leave it in his car. So there was always a pile of CDs on his car floor, and his car actually broke down once, and we had it towed to the backyard, and it sat there for 3 years. Well, maybe it was 2 years before he actually moved, and he sold the car before he moved. I think he maybe even took it to the junkyard. I'm not sure. But I didn't know that he would take my CDs and leave them in his car along with his CDs. And so he ended up taking 3 of my Soilwork CDs and losing them over time. And I know all this for a fact because I have never lost or misplaced a single one of any of my albums, and I have thousands of them. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm trying like I'm making excuses. The reason I'm bringing that up is because my copy of Steel Bath Suicide, the very first Soilwork album, on CD, was one of those CDs that he took and that I do not own anymore. I do not have a copy of that CD anymore. And I plan to eventually someday replace that copy, but I just, haven't found a copy anywhere. I know I can purchase it online, and I'll probably end up doing that eventually, but, it's more important to me to listen to newer stuff. But anyway, I did have Steel Bath Suicide, and I enjoyed that album actually a little bit more than the Chain Heart Machine, which is their second album, and the first one I have here. And I enjoy their first two albums for what they are, but it's definitely a lot different than, the rest of their catalog. Steel Bath Suicide, I actually think, is a little bit more different than anything else, really. There's a little bit of classic rock in there, which is actually maybe harkens more to the more modern style of Soilwork, but it's incredibly, lower budget sounding compared to everything else. And it very obviously heavy, like thrashy stuff, speed metal-y kind of things. Not really my taste as much, but I enjoy it for what it is. But I do not have my copy of Steel Bath Suicide here. But anyway, Chain Heart Machine. Then we have Predator's Portrait, which was actually one of the other albums that I lost, and I managed to get a replacement copy of this last year. Nuclear Blast had fantastic CD sales on Black Friday, or Cyber Monday, one of those 2 days anyway. I managed to buy this and a new copy of Panic Broadcast for like $2 each, like $3 each. Ridiculously good prices. But anyway, Predator's Portrait. This is where I feel Soilwork started to sort of become the Soilwork that they would, morph into, I guess. Still very heavy, lots of speedy, thrashy stuff, but definitely more clean vocals, more sort of soaring choruses and things. Really cool, interesting keyboard work on this album that really translated over into, of course, Natural Born Chaos, which I can't say enough good things about this album. This album is fantastic. I really think this is one of my favorite Soilwork albums of all time. I know it's really beloved by fans, and I think for rightly so. I absolutely love this album. The keyboards on this album are really, really, really cool. There are several songs where the song almost sounds more happy, I think, that it was meant to be because of the selected, the keyboard patches that they chose to use. And I really enjoy that. There's obviously more singing on here. Really enjoy everything off of this album. The whole thing is actually really good. Then we get to Figure number 5. This is the album I was mentioning. This is the actual physical CD that I purchased at Homer's that day. So glad that I did. I've already talked about this one a little bit. Love how I hate to say that it's poppy, but it really is if you kind of compare it to basically everything else in their catalog. The heavy moments aren't very heavy at all, and I think a lot of that has to do with the production, the mixing, the way everything was mixed together, and it's just such a unique metal album. If someone were to ask me, what should be the very first metal album I ever show someone that has hated metal their entire life, this would definitely be something that this would be one of the albums you could show them relatively early in someone's metal career. I think that's one of the things that maybe not metal career, but you know what I mean. It certainly helped me get into metal, and I think that the lack of super incredible heaviness on it is one of the reasons that helped me. I mean, even the song Figure number 5, is that what it's called? Yeah, Figure number 5. Even the song Figure number 5, which is the song on here that has no singing whatsoever and is just heavy the entire time, even that song, the heaviest moment on the album, isn't that incredibly heavy. And I think, like I said, a lot of that has to do with the production and the mixing and the sort of overall warm feel that the album has mixing-wise. I absolutely love the way this album is mixed. Then we have the first album that I was aware of that was released when I was aware of and already a fan of the band, and that is Stabbing the Drama, which I have a little... I don't know, this is like a single or something like that. This is like a little sampler. It's got the song Stabbing the Drama and the crest fallen on here. Just something cool I managed to find over the years. Then, of course, Stabbing the Drama. And to show you how much I enjoyed this album at the time and how important Soilwork was to me, back in probably, I think, 2004-ish, we were having like a party over at our house for some classmates, schoolmates, or I think it was a holiday, maybe Easter. My mom always used to like to do crafts. And one of the crafts that we did one year was to paint a jar. And so I took my jar and I painted it with the Stabbing the Drama logo, and then on the back the nail, I think, or no, it's just a knife. I guess the knife stabbing, whatever. Anyway, that was what I chose to do. Well, my mom painted like a blue jar with flowers on it or whatever. So I've always had this. I've always thought this was kind of like an interesting little thing, but that's how special and important Soilwork was to me at the time. And I enjoy this album a lot. This was one of the first albums that got me to start thinking about song structuring, because I really, really, really hated that some of the songs on this album were structured such that it was like verse 1, verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, bridge, outro. It didn't go back to the chorus a third time, and I remember being so utterly devastated at the time because I wanted the songs to finish themselves. I wanted them to resolve, and I didn't feel like the certain songs on here that didn't do that, which a lot of the songs on here don't do that. Anyway, if you're a fan of my channel and you've watched any other videos on my channel before, you know how important song structuring is to me. And I'll probably talk about that when we get into Övergivenheten. But this was one of the first albums that got me sort of thinking about music in a little bit of a different way, about musical structure. And so that's really important and special to me in that regard. Then we have Sworn to a Great Divide, which I think is probably Soilwork's worst album. There's not a lot on here to enjoy. However, I did re-listen to it for the first time in a few years, just very recently, and it's mixed much heavier than I remember it being at the time. So that's kind of an interesting thing. The bonus DVD on here is actually really terrible. There's really nothing worth it on here. I remember really liking the last two songs on this disc, which I have the US bonus disc that has the song Martyr, the bonus song Martyr on here. 20 More Miles and Martyr are, in my opinion, the best two songs on this album, and, you know, they're the last two. You got to listen through the entire album to get there. So, their weakest album, in my opinion. And at that point, I believe Peter Witchers had left the band, I think, after Stabbing the Drama. He was gone for Sworn to a Great Divide, and then came back for the Panic broadcast, which I think is one of Soilwork's most consistent, strongest albums. Love this album. Really enjoy. This is the first album that we heard Dirk Verbeuren just like unleashed to the world, and blast beats, shredding blast beats abound in certain songs. Not all over the album. That didn't come till later. Excuse me. But really enjoy this album. This is one of my favorites of theirs. This is earlier, chapter in the early years, just to show that off. I don't even know. I don't care about that very much. An interesting, cool thing that I have, but not anything really worth mentioning here. This is, Death Resonance. This is their sort of bonus things and, you know, B-sides and collection. Really cool. Plus the Tokyo EP or something on here. This is really interesting. Mix of stuff going all the way back to, I believe, Sworn to a Great Divide. Then we have their three most recent albums, minus Övergivenheten, which I would kind of group together a little bit. Maybe I would group these two albums, The Ride Majestic and Living Infinite. I would group them together. And I don't know what Övergivenheten is going to sound like at all. For the record, I guess I should have mentioned that right away. I haven't heard anything of this album at all, but I think possibly my favorite Soilwork album, my number one Soilwork album, is The Living Infinite. And I know it's kind of a cheat because it's a double album, so it's like two Soilwork albums in one. But I really enjoy a lot of the songs off this, and I think probably my favorite, if you took my top 20 favorite Soilwork songs, maybe 10 of them would be spread out across these two discs, which tells you how much I enjoy this album. And I do have the live in Helsinki that goes along with this, though it's kind of everything from before that. And I also have, you can see here, I got to show it off just because it's cool. I have my Living Infinite vinyl here, which is actually interesting because it's only 2 records. This should have been a 4-disc set, but it's only 2. But I wanted to just show, people may not have seen this. It's a really cool set. And I just wanted to show, because the discs that I have are actually, ooh, looky, it's the cool, you know, it looks blue on here, but as I'm holding it, this is the most turquoise thing in the whole world. I don't know why my colors aren't exactly, that's crazy. Hopefully I can edit this such a way that this looks turquoise, but this is the most turquoise thing in the world. And so I think it's really cool that I have this. I have actually listened to this on vinyl before. It's great. The quality sounds pretty good, but like I said, if you know anything about vinyl, I'm really shocked that this wasn't a 4-disc set, though I can understand why it wouldn't be, because four records is a lot to fit in one package. It makes it significantly more expensive. But I'm really happy that I do have that. That's the only Soilwork album that I have on vinyl, and considering it's one of my absolute favorites, you know, I'm happy that I was able to get that. And then we have the Ride Majestic, which I'm sort of indifferent about, really. I think that it's pretty good. It's very consistent. I mentioned Dirk Verburen and the blast beats abound. So many blast beats that I started to really sort of, not question, but like, Soilwork for a while, I really feel like they didn't do it on Övergivenheten, or whatever this album's called. This one. This one definitely has more of a classic rock feel to it, which I think has to do with Night Flight Orchestra, but I'll get to that in a second. But there are so many like weird moments where the drums feel so intense and heavy and fast, and what's happening over the top of them vocally and maybe even musically as well doesn't really fit with that. Like, it's a cool juxtaposition to have the crazy over the top of, you know, Strid, you know, singing this nice melody, and the guitars doing, you know, whatever they're doing. But there was so much of the like blast beats going on, and I think that's the term for it, when he was just, you know, like everything as fast as possible. It was sort of became like a signature of their sound for these two albums, and I think that's one of the things that I dislike about it. I don't hate that it's incredibly heavy at all. I like that, and I like that it's fast too and very technical. But I don't know, it was very strange to me that all of a sudden they started doing that. You know, it started with the Panic Broadcast with that Late to the Kill, Early to the Slaughter song. And they really use that a lot on these two albums. And I think that's one of the things to me that's a little bit of a negative. But I like everything else about these albums, and I do enjoy some of those moments. I just feel like they used it too much. So hopefully you're following along with me there and you get what I'm talking about. But then we get to their most recent album, Övergivenheten. I'm sorry, I do not speak Swedish at all, and it really doesn't matter to me what any of this stuff means, because like I said before, lyrically that's not what I'm here for. So like, I love personally the fact that they're allowing their culture and their history and their I guess we'll just say culture, and hopefully you understand what I mean. It's cool to me that they allow their culture through. You know, not a lot of bands who are trying to be popular, not that so that's Soilwork's goal right now anymore at their stage in their career, but like, not many bands would be willing to totally have a song that's not in English, or to name their album something that's completely unpronounceable to us dumb Americans. You know, for fear that they would alienate themselves from stupid, you know, Americans like me not being able to enjoy it. But I will say I love that kind of stuff, and I'm so happy that they feel comfortable enough as a band to be able to do things like that. So I'm super happy with that. And I do know that there are some lyrics on the new album not in English, though it might have been in Latin, because some of them I think are like choir things just in looking at the book a bunch. We'll see when we get there. But okay, sorry, I put the cough drop in my mouth. Hopefully it doesn't affect my speech that much, but this is the first time I've talked for a half hour straight. And I don't want to stop because I've started. I enjoy this album a lot, but like I was saying earlier, song structuring is super important to me. And I feel like a lot of the songs on this album felt a little bit short. The music stuff was really cool. Like the guitar riffs on this album are really interesting and unique, I feel. You know, Soilwork is one of those bands that's not afraid to, not even afraid, they really don't do it at all, really. They do not chug in their songs ever. Like, Soilwork is not a chuggy band. And maybe at certain times in their career a little bit more, but certainly they do not use like guitars tuned down to like drop B or A, or if that's even possible. Like they will do a whole song in the key of A and have it just be the regular guitar tuning, you know? And I feel like that is one of the things that gives them more of a sort of unique and also more of like a classic throwback, like classic rock sound. Now, along with that is I love Bjorn Speed Strid on the vocals. I think he is one of the greatest vocalists of all time. I really, really have enjoyed him forever, and I've always thought of him as one of the great metal vocalists, and beyond that, just one of the great vocalists for bands that I really enjoy. And so I followed a lot of his side projects. You know, I have one Disharmonia Mundi album, which I believe is an Italian band that he sang vocals for. On one of their albums, I have that album. I have the Cold Seed album, which was, I think, one of his first sort of like side projects where he did the entire vocals for that. So if you've never heard that before, look that up. I was going to bring it down here and I left it upstairs. Cold Seed, all one word. Look that up if you're unfamiliar. Very similar to Soilwork, kind of at the time of Stabbing the Drama. I would say I think that was about when that came out. Kind of sounds like that stuff, maybe a little bit less heavy. And then we come to Night Flight Orchestra, which is, hopefully everybody watching this video knows, but if you're not aware, Night Flight Orchestra is a band that I myself am not too like keen on, but Strid, the singer for Bjorn Speed Strid, the singer for Soilwork, is the singer for Night Flight Orchestra, and David Anderson, one of the primary songwriters for Soilwork, is the guitarist and one of the primary songwriters for Night Flight Orchestra. And I don't know if any of the other members of Night Flight Orchestra are members of Soilwork, or maybe former members. I'm not positive about that, but I have to say that Night Flight Orchestra is a band that, to me, on paper, sounds like I would absolutely love it. And I've listened to, I think, 3 of their albums, and I listened to their first 2, and I think I have maybe their first one on CD somewhere. I couldn't find it to bring it down. But I remember at the time being like, man, I wish this was just like a little bit different than what it is. I think they're kind of going for something that's not really aimed for my taste in music. But basically the entire Night Flight Orchestra catalog doesn't speak to me that much. But I do really think that being in the Night Flight Orchestra has influenced Soilwork a lot. You know, I feel like they were able to do all this like more poppy, like classic rock stuff in Night Flight Orchestra. And then when they got ready to record a Soilwork album, that was where a lot of the blast beats and things came from. They were like, just do it, get heavy, do the intense metal stuff, the death metal stuff, the Swedish, you know, Gothenburg style melodic death metal stuff. And so they were able to like kind of get the pop, I guess, out of them with Night Flight Orchestra. But I feel like with Verkligen, you start to see Night Flight Orchestra sort of creep into Soilwork. And I feel like it was in a really cool way, because this album, to me, sort of sonically, is maybe the album that they have that sounds the most sonically similar to Figure Number 5. But musically, it's completely different. The riffs are significantly more complex. The vocals are more complex. I feel like there's a lot less screaming vocals, but even when there are screaming vocals, it doesn't sound very intense because of the way everything is mixed. It has a very overall warm tone sounding mix, which makes it a very unique album in today's modern metal stuff, where everything is like, you know, all the drums are replaced to high heaven, everything is so compressed, and everything is such a high, shrill, tinny feel to it, with lots of keyboards and things to it. Everything feels very computery, and I actually personally enjoy that sound a lot. I think that you can get such, like, for example, We Butter the Bread with Butter. Like, We Butter the Bread with Butter is the perfect example of an awesome, incredible, amazing band whose albums are mixed completely differently than the Soilwork album, especially this album. And so now we're getting to the reason we're all here. So, Övergivenheten. And I heard Strid in an interview I watched like 10 seconds of a couple days ago pronounce it, and I can't pronounce it, so I'm sorry about that. But again, I love the fact that it is, I assume, Swedish. I like that it's in their native language. I think that's really cool of them to do that. I don't know what this is going to sound like. I did read a little bit of an interview that they posted, and I've looked in the book for this. So I want to point out and say, first of all, I have not even heard 5 seconds of any audio from this whatsoever. I have no clue what it sounds like at all. Well, one thing that I think is interesting is that in going through here, just like all of their more recent albums, it says the title of the song and then has the lyrics, but it also says who wrote the music and who wrote the lyrics. And so we'll go through that kind of as we listen, but it's really nice, the collaborative effort that went into making all the songs on this album, because every song is different for the most part, at least especially the way that they structure the album from song to song. Like, you know, the first song is music Strid, lyrics Anderson / Strid. The second song is music and lyrics just Anderson. Track 3 is music and lyrics Anderson. Track 4 is music and lyrics Strid. So you can see that the writing credits, the song credits, vary from song to song, and I think that that's really cool, and it shows the collaborative effort. But I want to just read at the very end here on the last page. It says, so we have all the guys in the band: David Anderson, Sylvain Cordray, Cordray, I assume, Bjorn Speedstrid, Sven Karlsson, Rasmus Airborne, and Bastian Thursgaard. But then it also says, featuring Rachel Hall on violin and cello, love it, Johan Ronden on acoustic guitar and banjo, love that, can't wait to hear some banjo. Then Hannah Carlson on cello again, Morgan Schrantz, voice, so that's, I assume Morgan Schrantz is female voice, that's exciting. Then we have Niles Carlin, guest vocals on Wings of a Goddess. Don't know if that's male or female vocals, doesn't really matter, but it's cool to have a guest vocal specifically featured on that song. And then we have Daniel Fault Caval. Now, I'm not sure what a caval is. Hey, Google, what is a caval?
Cabal is used as a noun to mean a secret political clique or faction.
A secret political clique or faction. I don't think that that's what it's meaning. No. Anyway, I assume it's some sort of an instrument. But then we have ladies choir. And we have 6 women listed here in the ladies choir. And the fact that there's a choir, there's cello, there's banjo, there's acoustic guitar, there's guest vocalists, that all makes me so excited for what this album could potentially be. Now, maybe that's all just on like one song that they put a lot of effort into making this one big epic song. And if there is a big epic song, I assume it's the last song, On the Wings of a Goddess Through Flaming Sheets of Rain. How badass is that song title? But, you know, I'm super excited. I have very high hopes for this. And in looking through the lyrics in the book, I did see a lot of the songs do say, you know, has the lyrics written, and it goes to the chorus again at the end of the song. Some of them don't, and that was that's to be expected with the Soilwork album. And I know, I'll just say right now, I know a lot of people really do not like, they don't think of music the way that I do necessarily, especially regarding song arrangements. But like I said, I always hope that a chorus comes back in and we end the song on the chorus. That's what I prefer. I do understand and appreciate the artistic value in like ending something in a particular way or having something end dissonantly or you know, I understand all those things. But for me personally, I want the song to go back to the chorus at the end. I do not want any of these songs to fade out, but I don't think that that'll be an issue. But Soilwork has faded some of their songs out throughout their catalog, though not many. Hopefully no fade outs. That's my rule. No fade outs ever. There's no good excuse to ever fade out a song. One last thing I want to mention is that I love the artwork for this, but I really, really have enjoyed the artwork for Soilwork's last few albums. I really think, like, The Ride Majestic is fantastic album artwork, and it goes all the way around. The entire thing is absolutely fantastic. And I love, hopefully you'll be able to see this, I love the uniformity here. No, you're not really able to see. I love the uniformity here, with the Soilwork being listed always the same way on all of their albums. I think stuff like that is really cool, and it just shows like a foresight and a thought into the thought process. Like it shows that they care. Man, boy, did I just talk for a long time, not expecting to do that. Hopefully I was able to edit all of that into something that was coherent and not forever. But let's get into this album. First, real quick, I have one more thing I have to do. Look here on my table, and I'll be right back. For this review, I have a brand new Mountain Dew to try. I love my Mountain Dews. Very excited for this. Now, I will say I did drink one of these last night, so this isn't some sort of like a review or anything, as if I had more things I needed to add to this. But this is brand new. This is the brand new Mountain Dew Voodoo, mystery flavor for 2022. I tried one last night and it was really great. I loved it. I could not pinpoint like what the flavor is, which is always the point. Oh, that's such a good different flavor. Okay, so while I'm setting this up here, I just have to say, I have to apologize for how scatterbrained this whole thing is. I was really trying to make it a point to not talk very much at the beginning of this video, and I ended up recording. I'm at the 50-minute mark of this recording, and I recorded before. It doesn't matter, but I'm sorry. Maybe the COVID affected me more than I thought it did. But we're here now. We're ready to listen to this. If you skipped all that stuff, great for you. We're here now. We can listen to this hopefully fantastic and great new Soilwork album for the very first time together. Now, I will say this extra cable that I have hooked up to my headphones here, it's necessary for my headphones to work correctly, which I do love my headphones, by the way, but not this particular aspect of that. But anyway, the extra cable that I have hooked up here, it actually reverses the polarity. It reverses the stereo image of my headphones. So if I mention that something is on the right and I'm not thinking about it in the moment, which usually I'm pretty good about this, if I mention something is off to the right, for you it might be off to the left. It's just because I wasn't thinking that my stereo image is reversed. Okay, so I added all the songs to my Winamp, which is what I'm going to be using to play, and we have 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 12 seconds. So let's go ahead and start this. All these songs look really long, and I'm super into that. Let me see how long. Yeah, those are 22. Yeah, just that. Övergivenheten, track 1. Övergivenheten. Soilwork, now. Yes. We're starting out with acoustic guitar and choir, possibly. I'm gonna have to adjust the volume as we get into this here. I love this sort of like a... I'm not sure what that is. Love it. We got 2 electric guitars panned to the sides, sort of doing different things. There's the choir. Now this song is lyrics Strid, music Strid, lyrics Anderson Strid. Definitely a realistic sounding snare. Lots of room in there. Like lots of room tone. So now we have piano in there along with the acoustic guitar. The choir is still going. This feels very epic. Okay. My first impression is that the cymbals sound terrible. Well, not terrible, but not very good. Okay, we have Strid with vocals right in the middle, but then we have the side vocals, double take, overdub tracks, spread wide. Very stereotypical for Strid. Bjorn. I'm not sure how to pronounce all these guys' names. I will definitely say the whole mix feels very thin. The drums definitely sound like they're real drums, no overdubbing, which I know I've heard Strid say, or Bjorn Speed Strid, I've heard him, I'm not sure what to refer to him as. I've heard Strid refer in the past interviews that he doesn't like auto-tune and things like that, he doesn't like trickery like that. Big chorus here. Like the drums. The kick, the snare definitely sounds real. It's sort of like a pingy snare. Very totally dry, no high end to it whatsoever. Like you don't hear none of the snares. It almost sounds like the snares are turned off. I will definitely say overall the mix feels very thin though. A little bit tinny. I wouldn't say it sounds bad, though. Lead guitar, now we have a harmonized guitar part with it. Back to the chorus. Very catchy. I love it, what's happening. Combination of the harsher vocals with the sung vocals over the top. Many, many vocal layers going on. That's very stereotypical for Strid's vocals. A little bit of a shrill. Wow. Shredding guitar in there at the end. Okay. Really like the epic way that song started. And now we're letting it go a little bit at the end here. Love that. Here, piano. Piano sounds nice. Definitely sounds like a piano patch rather than like a realistic piano, but that's totally fine for this. It doesn't need to sound like a grand piano. Love it. I loved the epic feel of everything there. And it also had a very classical song structure, exactly what I wanted, with a little bit of a guitar solo, and then the guitar solo halfway through got a harmony part with it. Very Soilwork. The way it started, though, very nice. Okay, very dry. Okay, that sounds French to me. It definitely sounds like it's mixed more like a classic rock album. Like the drums, it sounds so different because the drums are so what the drums sound like. They're not replaced to make everything feel more electronic or poppy. It's not like that. Okay, nice change in feeling there. Got a nice little electronic thing there off to the side. And just on the right. That sounds like a flute. See, now here I think the drums sound really nice, but it's probably because the song's quiet and the drummer can play and you hear a little bit more. I didn't see anyone listed for a flute. Unless that's what a caval is. Could also just be a patch that Sven Karlsson was playing on the keyboards as well. So the electric guitars here, which those are electric guitars, doing some strumming. Very cool. Not much distortion on them at all. Actually, just a little bit of a flange or a chorusing effect. Totally clean vocals. One track in the middle. Complex drum part here. A little stepping down like that. On the crashes too here, which is an interesting. Now to the hi-hat. Okay. Really interesting chord change there. I wonder if that was at the chorus or pre-chorus. Pre-chorus, this is the chorus. A lot of vocal overdubs. The harmony vocals panned a little bit wide. The vocals feel like one single unit, like wall of sound vocals. Very stereotypical for Bjorn. But I will say this, flavor of the cough drop with the flavor of the Mountain Dew, not the best together. Okay, there we have some overdub, screaming vocals, really nice. Almost like more of a grunting. Again, the guitar's not super overly distorted. Really like the way it sounds. But very different sounding than a vast majority of Soilwork's catalog. Definitely the songs, so far the first two songs, feel more like they could have belonged on Övergivenheten rather than on any of the other Soilwork albums. I do like the way the guitars sound. Very raw, but also very dry. Ooh, nice piano there. Love this. Shredding solo. A lot of reverb and some delay on it too, it sounds like. It fits nicely into the pocket of the volume of all the other rest of the music. And that main guitar riff, just nice and clean, like I said. Not clean guitar, but there's not a lot of reverb, not a lot of room sound to it, just nice, dry sounding. Whoa, this track is 6 minutes and 53 seconds long. I love that. Now, I will say, Soilwork did release A Wisp of the Atlantic, their EP they released last year. They did release that on CD, and I don't have a copy of that, but I remember listening to it and being very impressed with it. I think for the first time in their career, they did a song that was over 10 minutes long. And I remember thinking, this is really cool. I wouldn't mind if they did more like this, a bit more progressive, but still keeping that sort of strong song structure there. This is great, just building up, the piano becoming a lot more prominent. Really cool. I really like this part, these types of things, that allowing the songs to breathe with some patience and some lower, more down-tempo feeling. Okay, back to the beginning here. Yeah, this definitely sounds like French to my ear, though I'm not an expert at all, like I said. If you listen to the whole video so far, I'm barely speak English. Nice. Shredding in the back there. Kind of floating along and from left to right for me, I guess from right to left for you. Reverb and everything on there. Nice effects. And the guitars just being calm, kind of doing their thing, keeping a pattern going so that there's movement. But it's very, very subtle. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. Definitely more Night Flight Orchestra, though, than I believe anything that they've released so far. Whoa, okay. Now we're in death metal territory. Some fast picking here. And we got some little bit of blast beat going on. Nice vocal overdubs there. Now this sounds more like Strid's Soilwork vocals. This definitely sounds more of like a Living Infinite, Mirai Majestic sounding song. But the mix is still the way it has been so far. I would actually say that I'm hearing less vocal overdubs and just that sort of a little bit less of that wall of sound, vocal sound, than I've heard Strid use in the past. You know, there was definitely some of that in there so far in the other two previous songs. This one definitely seems a little bit more stripped back vocally, which is interesting. I like that, actually. I feel like sometimes he can go a little bit overboard with how many parts he does. And I can understand that to an extent too, because it's fun to go in and come up with vocal harmonies and everything. But this is nice. The mix is growing up. My ears have been growing a little bit more accustomed to the mix, but I still feel like it's lacking a little bit of that like super, super high-end like clarity that you get from the super, super breathy high frequencies. And that's fine with metal. Sometimes metal is just a solid block of audio, so it's hard to get a lot of those delicate higher frequencies out. And it's definitely not muddy sounding, but it also has, as far as I can tell, like no sub frequencies whatsoever. So it kind of exists in this middle frequency range. And I referred to it earlier, and I still feel like it's more on the thin side rather than the muddy side, which I would definitely prefer something to be thin sounding than muddy. Ooh. A fiddle solo, violin solo here. That's so cool. I wonder if they tour with a violinist. That would be really interesting to see. I mean, we're getting into like symphonic metal, you know, which is really cool. Love the guitar riffing going on the side here too. Okay, now guitar solo. Blast beat, I think that's what you refer to that as. Back to the chorus, I think. Or pre-chorus, maybe. Half-tempo chorus. Definitely less vocal overdubs here, which is a little bit nice. You know, it'd be very simple to do some vocal harmonies here. And he's refraining from doing that. He's showing some restraint. Yep, and back to the beginning of the song with the blast beats and the fast picking. Very cool. Love it. Love it. So far, all three songs really good. Okay, now we're on track 4, Valleys of Gloam, which is really interesting. Gloam. Never heard that word before. Gloam. For some reason, I am thinking of associating with the ocean, but I'm not sure why. Vocal harmony, or guitar harmony going there. Yeah. So this song definitely sounds like it's in a higher key than the last song. I would assume. Like, the guitar riffs don't sound crunchy and low and detuned, which is a staple of Soilwork's music. A lot more clean vocals. It's definitely, as Soilwork's gone on in their career, they've utilized much more clean vocals. You know, we're getting a little bit more vocal harmonies over the top. Guitar is very... just basically strumming. Might even be some acoustic guitar along in there with it. Nice. Such a high guitar riff, like middle part of the guitar. You know, it's really different sounding from so much of the metal that I listen to. And to me, I guess that's one of the reasons that I associate it more with like the classic rock sound, because the guitars aren't detuned and they're not just playing chuggy, you know, E string, you know, tuned down to like a B or whatever, chuggy riffs. They're more complex riffs that maybe require lots of open chords. Also, I love the catchiness of all the choruses so far, and the vocals just in general. Like the background, I'm gonna say the solo here. So this song is one that's music and lyrics by Strid. I love all the chords. Like, there's not very many bands that I really like notice the musical theory aspect of the band unless they're trying to be like crazy technical. And I don't know if this is true or not, because I'm a very, 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 very simple guitar player. I wouldn't even really call myself a guitar player. But to me, a lot of this sounds more complex because it feels like it's not just chugging. You know, it's not just relying on technique to be fast. It's relying on a lot of finger movements, I would assume. And a lot of, you know, when you play loud and low and heavy, you can have mistakes, more mistakes, because the mistakes are less noticeable than if you're playing higher up on the guitar neck, or if you're playing more like what's happening here. I feel like mistakes would be much more noticeable because there's more notes happening when you're playing open chords and you're playing more notes than just, you know, the root, the third, or the root, the fifth, and the root again, which is just what a power chord is. Wow, okay, heavy song. This is It in Your Darkness. Love the riff. I love the drums too. Like, the sound is really growing on me. It sounds so natural. Not a lot of keyboards I'm hearing here. Okay, now here we have some pads in the background and stuff. This song is music and lyrics by Strid again. See here, the drums are going fast, but then we just have this sort of like nice guitar melody over the top of it. Yeah. That's a cool guitar riff. Strid doing overlapping vocal part there. Something I feel like he did a lot more in the early part of his career. Because it's tough when you have overlapping vocal parts. Anders Frieden from In Flames does that a lot, where he'll have a vocal line, and then the vocal line that comes next actually overlaps. Impossible, obviously, to do that live. Whoa. Wow. Wow, okay, first impression, that's my favorite chorus of the album so far. Love it. Love this riff, too. Ba-da-da-da. And then the harmony part here. Makes it feel much thicker when that harmony part's in there. And if you do a harmony part that's an octave above or higher, the parts feel very separated and it can feel kind of an interesting way. But when you have a harmony part where the harmonies are closer together, it really thickens up the sound. Like right now, everything, the guitars we're hearing are both harmonized again. Now they're not, and it sounds nice and big and thick. Wow. Wow. Wait, it says solo strid. Vocal solo? Solo strid. Did he just write the guitar solo? Wow. Very cool. I like where the solos are sitting in the mix. Like, they're definitely down inside the pocket of the mix. They're not sitting on top of the music. Everything, including the vocals, is really nice in there. The solos seem like they're a little bit lower in volume than the vocals, especially the lead vocal. So you kind of have to like reach into this song to pull the solos out a little bit, but it's not too low. Guys, what a nice big chorus. Love this. Yeah. Wow, really, like, that's my favorite song on the album so far, I would say. All right, now Vultures. Okay, another heavy one, it sounds like. Music Carlson, lyrics Anderson. So this one, the music was done more primarily by the keyboard player. Interesting to see if we can notice a difference here. Love that riff. Very cool. And then having it in the middle there. Is that on the bass maybe? Oh, I love that low vocal in the back. Very cool. I love this riff. Some keyboard vocals in the back there, some keyboards, synth pads. There's a lot of subtle things happening in the mix to thicken it up in the back. Interesting change there. Whoa. Oh. That's pretty high vocals. I wonder if this song is in a different key. I like this. I like this sort of thrashy part here. This riff is reminding me of Raunchy. I mentioned them earlier. My favorite guitar riffs are all Raunchy guitar riffs. And if you're not a fan of Raunchy, I recommend looking them up. And if you like this album, definitely check out their most recent album. The problem with them is that they've changed lead singers 3 times. So, but I love every iteration of the band just as much as every other iteration. So, anyway, they're a great band. Been waiting for a new Raunchy album for like 5 years now. And their last album is a masterpiece, but it wasn't mixed the best. Love the guitars on this song, the guitar riffs. Very cool. Whoa. We got a tambourine and then sounds like a woodblock almost, or a cowbell. I love these guitar riffing. I would love it if there was a little bit of a breakdown where the guitar was doing this and it was like half tempo. That'd be cool. Really heavy. Yeah. Whoa! That's like a In Flames drum pattern. Love the tambourine. I was literally gonna say at the beginning of this song we haven't heard much auxiliary percussion at all. And I wasn't expecting to hear it. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Gosh, that guitar just... How about they had so much fun recording all this? Okay, so we have some more background vocals in the back. I can't really tell what they're doing, but there's more layers doing something that's sort of stretching out beyond the length of the lead vocals. Okay? Double time chorus here at the end. Whoa, holy cloud! That's a note I can't hit, but that was great. I love when you can just hear a band having fun. End it with a little bit of piano. Yes, I love this. I love these song outros. Very cool. And then what that does is it gives you a little bit of a time, a little bit of a moment to catch your breath and rest before it goes into the next song. You know, anytime a song ends with like a piano like this, not necessarily like this, and this doesn't sound like it all, but it always makes me think of Epic by Faith No More, you know? Really, this song, really great. These last two songs are my two favorite songs on the album. The guitar riffs, the guitar parts in this song in particular really stuck out to me. Really enjoyed this one. So I see the next track is only 1:33, and yes, it's Morgongava and Stormfagel. Music Anderson, just an instrumental. Whoa. So this is Music Anderson, which is the guitar player. What a cool melody. The guitar, the drums just barely playing. You can actually hear the flam, the on the snare drum. Not a flam, like it's like a little roll. I forget what you call that. When you let the stick hit the snare and go. Not a continuous roll, not, but a little. Yeah, hopefully you understand what I mean. But then we also have some crashes just going insane. Mixed very nicely. Almost like a creepy Halloween synth. Going back and forth, very cool. Very interesting. Okay, so that's the halfway point of the album now. So I wonder if we're going to get a different sound from here on out. Okay. This is Death, I Hear You Calling. Oh yeah, dancey, baby. Love this guitar riff. Yeah. And just that single in the background.
I know you've had the same sensation.
Wow.
Invitations to explore
It almost doesn't sound like Bjorn, but I can tell that it is him.
But you never want to talk about it. And I never want to talk about it. Some things are better left unsaid.
All right, what do we got for chord?
I hear you calling, but I can't reply.
See, now to me, this definitely sounds more like Night Flight Orchestra, which I'm okay with. I don't take that to be a negative. I love it. I love the plodding feel of it. Bass player just playing quarter notes.
I know you felt the pull from the electric third rail.
Wow.
Your gaze was staring at the sky.
Man.
But you never want to talk about it. And I never want to talk about it. Some words are meant for the
I'm happy about this. Sorry, I just...
I hear you calling,
Yeah.
but I can't reply. Though you've seen me falling, there's still life inside.
I wonder what kind of a solo we'll get here.
I hear you calling,
I would love like a keyboard, like a piano solo here. This is definitely much more of a groovy song.
that you left me wanting.
It says solo Anderson, but it can say solo anyone now, and I have no clue what to expect. Okay. Here, now we can hear the bass really nicely. The bass isn't super present, and it's also definitely very not overly compressed at all. It's just kind of there. Sounds very direct in. No, bass plug direct DI with direct in. Nice. Yep. Oh, that groove, it's not stopped once the whole song. Love the shredding solo here. Yes.
But I can't reply. Though you've seen me falling, there's still life inside. Death, I hear you calling, and I can't deny.
Oh, I love the secondary vocal part in there now.
You left me wanting.
It's an alternative rhythm over the top, so it's doubling, or it's those crazy hair metal notes that he hits. Love the guitar this whole song. Wow, dang it. I like that song too. Man, I mean, I love all of this so far. This is really good. I feel like the mix could be better overall for sure, but it's not bad. I need to listen to this in some other places. Whoa, that was really cool. That was like a reverse tambourine thing. Okay. So that was a very groovy and different feeling song. Very simple. Basically the same feeling the whole time. So now we have some nice piano. I'm hearing... That might actually be a real piano, and I'm hearing the actual movement in the air. Okay. Okay, yeah. Oh. Interestingly, vocals pan wide there. Double and pan wide. Violin. Yes, very interesting. I wouldn't have expected that here. Ooh. Interesting rhythm. Whoa. Wow. I'm really noticing the snare on this one. Really interesting, different feeling song. Especially coming after Death I Hear You Calling. I mean, this is almost like doom metal-y, kind of. Maybe black metal-y a little bit. Two genres of metal that I don't know very much about at all. A lot of vocal layering here, done really nicely. I know I'm not saying very much, I'm just engrossed. Wow. Again, totally different feel. Cool guitar riff here. Okay. Really nice here. Harkening back to the beginning of the song. A nice, slow melody. And we just have this, the kick drum going, just, you know, just going. Everything else is nice and slow, though. Cool. Okay, so that's the first song we have where they didn't go back to the chorus the third time, and I'm okay. That was definitely a different sounding song. I enjoyed it, though. Very different, unique sounding. Okay, Dreams of Nowhere. Starting right off. This is music, lyrics, Strid. Ooh, I love the guitars here. Yeah, you can just hear when that riff is so high, they can go down and do it on the low strings. Well, if they decide to do that during the song, they don't have to. It's this interesting guitar part. And again, nice. Really nice, catchy chorus. Be fun to sing along with this one, you know. There we go. That guitar riff. Love that. Love that. That was really cool. If they somehow incorporate that riff or a version of that riff into the bridge, that could be really cool. Halftime here. Love it. All right, what's the bridge gonna do here? Very cool. Okay. Guitar solo, I assume, here. Okay. That's such a cool guitar riff. There's definitely a lot of vocal overdubs, but it's still that clear lead vocal. And the lead vocal itself spread pretty wide. Might have been recorded with multiple microphones, and you can still hear it in the middle, but there is also a bit of a signal, I feel, present that's spreading the vocal out a little bit, but I still think it's that same source. You know, if there's multiple microphones on him, you can do different things to have the signal. Okay, this is an instrumental song. Now, this is an instrumental one where the music is done by Strid. The previous shorter instrumental track on the album, the interlude, this last interlude, I guess, was an Anderson interlude. This is a Strid one. More violin or fiddle. Now, I say fiddle because, and probably if you ask a violin player, they would definitely be able to tell you the difference. But to me, this sounds more like, you know, it's close. Not necessarily close. It's mixed further with a violin, with a reverb on it. But it sounds more like a fiddle, I would say, than a violin. You know, but I mean, whatever. That's neither here nor there. It's just semantics, I guess. Okay, and they're gonna fade this out. Okay. And then Golgata or Golgata. Okay, whoa. Whoa, what? That's really cool. Oh, I love it. There's like a weird time signature thing there they're doing, it feels like. Strings in the back, some sort of synth pad thing. I like this. Heavy vocals, a lot of vocals, faster rhythm. Okay. I almost felt like that was sort of a pre-chorus. I wasn't sure if that was the chorus. I will say one thing. A lot of the choruses feel like they're sort of existing in the same space. I like that they're catchier, but it does seem like the choruses sound a little bit similar from song to song. Like in this song, the one thing that's separating it definitely is Bjorn's, Strid's vocal rhythm here. Much faster. There's a lot more vocals written, you know, even. It's getting up and going, heavier. A little bit more vocal overdubs, more vocal harmonies here, this second chorus, I feel. Pretty sure. Okay, cool change. Love it. Yeah. Yeah. That restraint on the solo. That was cool. Oh, yeah. Okay, back to the main riff, their opening riff. I'm not sure how to count this. Not good with time signature stuff like that, though. Yeah, I have no clue. I can't count it. Wow, okay. Back to just another verse. That's nice. Again, the vocal layers overdubbing here. Or not overdubbing, sorry. Overlapping. I'm not a fan of... I don't know about that. I mean, it's performed well. I just don't know. That's kind of one of the things I don't like about Night Flight Orchestra that much. The hair metal. That's sort of like hair metal stuff. But I mean, Strid is a fantastic vocalist, and he can basically do anything he wants, which is really nice. Okay, Harvest Spine. Music, lyrics, Strid. Okay, we got some synths fading in. That's nice. A little different. Where's it gonna go, though? Okay. Oh, okay. This is reminding me of something. What? My eyes call for definition. They will capture the vile as they speak. Oh, I love this. Love it.
Not aware of the chain reaction, the diamond that glitters and comets now. A seasonal drive, sacrificial heart. It is in your judgment, but still too far. The burden of your demons is circumfine. Are eating me up, I've befriended the night. Set to inside. Condemned by the voices in your chest. Permission to
Love that hot, fast picking part, the high part. Very cool.
reaching up us where the flickering light never dies. Feels wide open as you fall.
This one, definitely for some reason, this song sounds more like old school Soilwork to me. Maybe it was that intro that reminded me so much of a song, I think, from Sworn to a Great Divide, maybe. Maybe Stabbing the Drama. Whoa. Like this definitely. Oh, I like that. That synth in there. Very cool. We haven't heard very much stuff that sounds like that. Sort of like a, almost like an alien invasion type of synth thing. I feel like that's sort of a synth sound that they would have used more on Natural Born Chaos.
Forever to bleed when I abandon his spirits and offsprings. Sinners and scapegoats, graves of sin. Preparing your offspring. As poison arose from
Yeah, this is giving me, for some reason, old school Soilwork vibes. Really interesting. I can't really pinpoint why. Maybe it's in slightly like lower register for the first grid. Maybe it's just the way he's approaching the vocals. Maybe it's the way the whole song is written. I don't know, but I'm feeling more like Stabbing the Drama or Sworn to a Great Divide. Now, I will say this is the penultimate song, and we have not utilized like the female choir at all or anything like that, really. And I've heard no banjo. So this last song, On the Wings of a Goddess Through Flaming Sheets of Rain, it better be a banger, and it better have everything thrown in there. Solo. Oh, solo Cordray. Or Cordray. 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 Whoa, that's a cool effect there. Might be some like pitch shifting patch or something very interesting, or double patch of some kind. A harmony, that patch. Or pedal. Some sort of a weird guitar pedal. Or they could have done multiple takes and overdubbed it. It's very interesting regardless. I actually really like this song a lot. Cool. All right. On the Wings of a Goddess Through Flaming Sheets of Rain. Okay. Love it right away. First thing I'm hearing, I love. What's going to happen here? Okay, it feels like more French again. I am not a fan of like spoken word in songs. So hopefully it's not overused here, but as the intro, it's kind of cool. Could be. Okay. All right, right into it. Fast riff. Okay. Interesting riff again. It sounds like a black metal riff or something to my ear. But slow singing over the top of it. That's so metal. On the wings of a goddess through flaming sheets of rain. So ridiculous. Now, I will say this one, music, Anderson. Lyrics, Anderson, Carlin, Schrantz. And I looked all over, and I could not find who those names belong to. So I'm not sure who Carlin or Schrantz are. Really hope we get more female choir in here somewhere just to have utilized that rather than just the first track. Second chorus. Okay, we got a little echo part there. Love this guitar riff. Oh, I love it. Okay, okay. I can hear something going in the background that's sort of like a constant, some sort of a keyboard, I assume. Keyboard part. Okay, solo. Love that entrance into this solo. Oh, I love it. I love it. Very bluesy. Oh yeah, bring it around again. Okay. Okay, so I was hoping this song would have like some sort of a crazy bridge, but it's not. Bridge is definitely nice, but it's not, you know, going back to the sort of sounds they were using on the opening track. Oh, love this half tempo. And that, okay, that's just a piano, I think. Love this. Okay. Back to the intro sort of thing where the French words were being spoken. I don't know if we'll get that again. Okay. This is nice, slow. Oh, off to the side. Interesting things happening. Okay. Nice little guitar part in there. Very dry, but there's some artificial reverb after the fact. Nice. Very tasty going along with the ding, 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 ding happening. Wow. Okay, all right, we're back into the chorus. Really cool way to enter back into the chorus there after that. Wow. I think that's it. I mean, it is it. I can see. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, so you might not be able to tell, but I just took like a several-hour break. And so I've been thinking about the album while I've been doing a few other things. And I came down here to record the rest of this video to sort of give my thoughts. And because I'm super incredibly extra, which I always am, I decided, in my head, I was like, oh, we should listen to a sample of one of the songs from Övergivenheten next to a song from, like, for example, The Ride Majestic, and just see what it sounds like. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, what if I did get one of those other bands that I mentioned earlier in the video? We Buttered the Bread with Butter, and then another band from Sweden that's a much newer band than Soilwork called Orbit Culture that I really love, and I think that both the We Butter the Bread with Butter album and the Orbit Culture album sound really fantastic. I would actually say maybe I think that those albums sound better than the album we just listened to, Övergivenheten. What if I played clips of those like back and forth and kind of went back and forth through them, and we had like a little listening party right now to go back and forth? Well, so I started to do that. I started to work on that, and then I was like, well, I could throw in a sample of one of the songs from Stabbing the Drama, which I think, in my head might be the best mixed Soilwork album, possibly. And then I thought, well, why stop there? Go to Chain Heart Machine, compare that. Then maybe Figure Number 5, because I mentioned that I thought that album sounded much more warm. And then, maybe what about Övergivenheten? Because that album is, very warm as well, but I think is mixed much more like a classic rock album. So what I tried to do was, from all the Soilwork albums at least, let me look what I got here. So I have Room Number 99 from the Chain Heart Machine, which was released in 2000, I believe. Might have been a little earlier than that, and I just have the version that was released in 2000. I'm not positive. So I might have like a remastered version or something. I don't think so. I think I just have the regular edition. It says 2000 on the CD. Then I have Overload from Figure Number 5, Crestfallen from Stabbing the Drama, All Along Echoing Paths from The Ride Majestic, Bleeder Despoiler from Övergivenheten, and then Harvest Spine from the album we just listened to, Övergivenheten. And in doing this, I was absolutely shocked. So I want to play for you some clips. Now, this part of the video here is just screaming to be copywritten. So what I'm going to do is go through here. We'll listen to a lot of samples. I'll click through the songs. You'll be hearing exactly what I'm hearing. I am recording on Streamlabs OBS, so you'll be hearing exactly what I'm hearing. And what I'll do is I'll just chop this section out and then test upload it to YouTube. And I'll try to do what I can to make sure that this makes sense for you, because I think this is going to be really entertaining. And I was not planning on having this section of the video here be some sort of like a crazy, like let's compare and contrast all Soilwork sounds and do some sort of like a breakdown. I wasn't planning this, but I started it. We're here now. We might as well do it. because the whole time I was listening to Övergivenheten, I thought I was a little disappointed with the way that it sounded. I kept mentioning that I thought it was a little thin, and that I was trying to explain that in that the low end, there was almost no sub-frequencies that I could detect. So, really interesting this. I actually was shocked at how similar all of the Soilwork songs sounded mix-wise. You can definitely hear a difference, but I was shocked. Now, again, I did try to choose songs where they were basically playing something similar. So the song wasn't like a crazy blast beat part, you know, over here, and then, you know, from figure number 5, like a slow song with the organ or something, you know, like that is not what I tried to do. I tried to get stuff that was comparable. So right now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to play a sample of Harvest Spine from Övergivenheten. And I'm just going to click around the song so we get a little feeling for how the song sounds, like the sonic placement of everything and the quality. And so one thing I want to point out is that I'm going to leave the volume the same. I'm never going to touch the volume the whole time we're doing this. So you'll get to hear the difference in mastering as well, because Chain Heart Machine is significantly quieter than the rest of this stuff. And that kind of makes sense just because of how music has gone and overcompression, the compression wars and everything. So let's listen to a quick sample, and I'll just skip around the song, you know, like I said, to try to avoid copyright stuff. This is Harvest Spine from Övergivenheten. Vocals. This is Crestfallen from Stabbing the Drama. I'll go back to Harvest Spine. Crestfallen. So to me, Crestfallen sounds like a much better mix, but there's more things going on. There's a lot lower frequencies. There's a lot more effects on everything. The high frequencies are much more easily detectable and discernible. Everything is much more, has more definition to it. But also the low frequencies are much thicker and beefier, but not to the point of being muddy. So here's Harvest Spine again. Crestfallen. It's definitely a little louder. The vocals are a little clearer. Again, those high frequencies are much more defined. Just remember. So there's some clean vocals. Guitar solo. Crestfallen. The vocals here a little distorted. Much more low frequencies to the vocals. Much more high frequencies. Back to Harvest Spine. So interesting. The Harvest Spine mix is a lot more contained within the mid-range frequencies. And I don't mean mids, I guess, like, you know, if you think of bass, mid, treble. I mean, like, the super highs and the super lows are basically non-existent in this. They're basically gone. Now the thing that was shocking to me, okay, let's listen to Overload from figure number 5. Now back to Harvest Spine. Now the guitars definitely sound a lot more compressed, but overall I would say this sounds like basically the same mix. I would actually say that this is Harvest Spine. Or I guess I should say the name of that. This is Övergivenheten. Back to figure number 5. I I think the vocals sound maybe a little bit better, a little more high quality. Övergivenheten. I am shocked how similar this sounds. I feel like the guitars have a little bit more low bite to them. This is Harvest Spine again. Back to Crestfallen. Oh, you know, and I should say as well, because of the way I'm recording this, I believe that the quality of everything will go down a little bit, and then, you know, of course, I have to render the video down for YouTube, and then however you're listening to it on YouTube, obviously, if you're on 1080p, it'll be a higher quality audio than if you're on 480p or whatever. But, you know, so just be aware of all of that. But it should be comparable because everything's going to be going through the same compression. But what you're listening to is not exactly a one-to-one representation. So I'm shocked. I think figure number 5 sounds very similar sonically to Övergivenheten. Now let's go to... Okay, so this is All Along Echoing Paths from Ride Majestic. This album, it was hard for me to find something that sounded tonally similar. This is as close as I could come. So here, you can definitely tell that there's more sub-frequencies. The bass has a lot more beef to it. There's more sub-frequencies to it. There's more of that high-frequency definition to the vocals. Okay, here's Övergivenheten. Back to Ride Majestic. Back to Övergivenheten. Back to Ride Majestic. Okay, wow, stabbing the drama. Listen to that. Totally different. Everything. Notice that reverb on the snare. It's very in flames. It sounds almost like a woodblock or something. Okay, let's go back to Ride Majestic. Okay, back to Övergivenheten. Back to stabbing the drama. Wow, much more high and low frequency definition. Hopefully you can hear that. Figure number 5. Sounds like it's been brought down a lot, the mix. Guitar solo. Let's try to find a guitar solo. Little guitar lead part here. This is on Ride Majestic. Okay, back to Övergivenheten. Ride Majestic. Figure number 5. So I feel like figure number 5, the Ride Majestic, and Övergivenheten exist in the same sort of space. There's differences, and maybe a lot of the differences are just performance, you know? I feel like the parts are very much more simpler on the earlier stuff. Okay, now, let's get a little bit more crazy and add another album in here. So this is Övergivenheten. So let's listen to Harvest Spine again from Övergivenheten. Now this is Bleeder to Spoiler from Övergivenheten. Now this definitely sounds like more like Crestfallen. Crestfallen still has more of the high frequencies in there though. There's definitely more low, like, you can feel the beater on the kick, which you do not feel on at least you don't feel as much on Övergivenheten. Also, Övergivenheten is quieter. So this is Övergivenheten. Övergivenheten. Crestfallen. Totally, maybe a little bit tinnier sounding, but Övergivenheten. Figure number 5. Vocals definitely more present in the middle. Övergivenheten. Ride Majestic. So in listening to that, I would actually feel that the Ride Majestic and Övergivenheten are maybe the two closest, most similar sounding, which is shocking to me. So what I'm learning now is maybe the style of playing is playing with my thinking of how it sounds more, because the guitar riffs and everything are quite a bit different on Övergivenheten, and I think that because of the style of playing, it feels older to me, but sonically it's very similar. So here's Övergivenheten. That could be off the same album. A little bit more beefier, mid-rangey, low end here. Yeah, and so then what we just last heard there was Övergivenheten, and so I'm gonna say I think that sounds a little bit less. Now, to be crazy, this is the last Soilwork album I have in here. This is Room Number 99 from the Chainheart Machine. So this is from, what, 22 years ago. So that's Chainheart Machine. There is Övergivenheten. Chainheart Machine. Övergivenheten. Totally different. And not just in the volume. Lots of reverb used on the drums. Drums sound much more mono. Övergivenheten. Övergivenheten. Chainheart Machine. Obviously the vocals sound way different, but Stabbing the Drama. Övergivenheten. Stabbing the Drama. Övergivenheten. Chainheart Machine. Really interesting. Really interesting, in my opinion. This is fascinating. Now, I wanted to compare that to two albums that I think sound really good that have come out both, I believe, in the last 2 years. So this is a song from We Butter the Bread with Butter's album, Das album from last year. This is Angriff der Donnerteller, okay? Now, I want to point out real quick, this is a totally different style of metal, so they're going for something different. This has all the drums replaced. There's a lot more electronic stuff happening. They chose what the kick sounded like. They chose what the snare sounded like. So let's play Övergivenheten first. There's some synths in there. Now this is We Butter the Bread with Butter. A lot more low frequencies. The kick is much more present. The snare. You can really feel the thump of those toms and that kick. You can really feel that kick. Listen to the kick. Övergivenheten. The drums sound puny and wimpy in comparison. So that's Övergivenheten. Crestfallen. Crestfallen. We butter the bread with butter. Crestfallen. Interesting. I think Crestfallen almost sounds a little bit better. But very different, right? Okay, so now let's listen to this. And this, I really enjoy this album by Nia, by Orbit Culture. And this is, I believe, their debut full-length album. And this is the song, which one is this? The Shadowing, off of Orbit Culture. Now, I'm going to play a little bit of Övergivenheten here. Okay. Now, this is Orbit Culture. Now, I couldn't find a song that was very comparable. This is much more like the We Butter the Bread with Butter. Shockingly different, right? Now, again, what I was talking about, this is just chugging metal. However, the difference in the approach to the mix is so apparent. The kick drum is almost the most prominent thing you're hearing. Kick drum and bass, and then the guitars are off to the side, spread really wide. I mean, it is night and day. Now, part of that is the difference, obviously, in what they're playing. Building. Övergivenheten. Orbit Culture. Massively louder, much more compressed. We butter the bread with butter. Orbit Culture. I mean, the Orbit Culture is like 4 or 5 dB louder just in general. And if we looked at the waveforms, I'll bet you it would be just significantly more of a brick. Now, I think all of this would be pretty bricky, but that's just metal for you. Like, metal is pretty much a constant wall of sound coming at you, a constant loud noise coming at you. But really, this is shocking and interesting. And I don't necessarily think I need to dive into it too much more, but I think that you could say that the Orbit Culture is over-compressed. However, when I listen to it, I feel like that album is so much more immense and so much more crushing, and that's what it's going for. Like, the vocals are not the focal point of Orbit Culture at all. Maybe a little bit more when they're distorted, heavy, growly vocals. They're definitely more. You're able to hear them a lot more. When they get to the singing parts, it sounds a lot more like James Hetfield from Metallica, and the volume is dropped down and there's layering and stuff. Whereas with Soilwork, when you're listening to, Speed singing or Strid singing, that's really the most prominent thing we're hearing here. And he is layering screams with, in the background, the background vocals are screams and harmony layered vocals, all spread wide, and then the lead vocal in the middle. And I think that that's, much more of a classic way to mix rock. Metal and like electronic music, dubstep and things like that, much more compressed, but there's less things to have in the mix. If it's just chunky guitar on the left, chunky guitar on the right, chunky bass in the middle, and then these huge, massive kicks, all those things are big, chunky, meaty, huge things. And I really feel like that sort of like is the way that those things are approached. Now, I was shocked that the We Butter the Bread with Butter was a little bit more comparable to the Soilwork stuff than the Orbit Culture stuff. But the thing that was most surprising to me was the similarities between Figure Number 5 and Övergivenheten. I think that they sound very similar sonically. Now, I also want to point out that these are just one song off of the albums and not a representation of the albums as a whole at all. Nobody who listens to Figure Number 5 could really say that it sounds similar, from an arrangement perspective, from a technical perspective, from the way that the songs sound, there's no way that Övergivenheten and Figure Number 5 sound similar in that regard. But sonically, I was shocked at how similar they are. This was a very interesting experiment for me, so I hope that you appreciate that. So, okay, so now I need to just give my review of the album here. The first thing I'm going to say is that I loved it. I think Övergivenheten is great. I definitely liked it more than Övergivenheten, and I know I pronounce that word wrong every time. I don't think there's even like a second T or whatever in there. But I definitely liked it more than that album. I think I liked it more than The Ride Majestic. I definitely liked it more than Sworn to a Great Divide. I definitely liked it more than Predator's Portraits, Chain Heart Machine, Steel Bath Suicide. So I don't know. I think there was so much to it that I did enjoy, not to just compare their catalog against each other. I really liked all of the clean sung choruses, of course. Every single song with the exception of one, I believe, and then, of course, the two sort of instrumental interludes. Every single song had the structuring that I wanted, which was verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, bridge of some kind, chorus, outro. That's what I love, and that's what every one of these songs were. So that was really nice. So I really enjoyed the song structuring. There were several times where I was listening to this album where I really got the sense that the guitar riffs were awesome. And it really is interesting to note that the different people who wrote each of the songs, and I wonder if, for example, I wasn't paying attention in this regard, but I wonder if, excuse me, I wonder if the songs that I liked more off of Övergivenheten were all the songs written by Anderson, for example, or were the songs written more by Strid. But I think that's an interesting thing to think about. I really did notice that the one song that was written by Sven Karlsson, the keyboard player, I really, really, really liked that guitar riff. And so I don't know if that was something that was written on the piano or if he probably can also play the guitar as well. I was surprised one of the solos said solo Strid, which would be the singer for the band, who, as far as I'm aware, does not ever play guitar on stage. Not that that matters. Of course, he could write the guitar solo part, and then one of the two guitar players could play the part. Especially on the album. Obviously, anything could be done on the album. For all I know, David Anderson played all of the guitars on the whole album. I doubt that. I'm sure that their other guitar player, Corday or whatever his name is. I'm sorry for forgetting. I'm sure that all the guys played on the album, but maybe that's not the case, And then it just has listed who wrote what part, and that's really interesting. Going through all of this, mix-wise, it was really interesting because I feel like I felt a little bit negative about it while I was listening to it. And I don't know if that's because my standards are a little bit higher now than they were when I fell in love with Figure Number 5. In my head, while I was listening to Övergivenheten, before I did all this comparing stuff, I would have told you that Figure Number 5 sounded sonically much better than Övergivenheten. And that's why I was so surprised that they did sound so similar. Now, I do still think that Figure Number 5 does sound better because I do feel like the vocals are a little bit more clear and put in the mix a little bit more prominently. However, that may just be because there were fewer layers of things, I believe, happening on Figure Number 5. There were still keyboards and things, but the complexity of the guitar riffs and the guitar parts, and even the keyboard parts to an extent as well, is significantly higher on Övergivenheten. There's a lot more movement in the parts that you're hearing underneath the vocals. And it's not always the case, which I have felt that with some of the records in the past with Soilwork. I have felt that the music was a little bit too busy for long stretches of time or for an entire song without there being not necessarily a simpler part, but just something to not be less distracting. Maybe not distracting is the right word. I have felt in the past like a lot of Soilwork's music is so chaotic and complex with really neat vocal melodies over the top and maybe even simple drums over the top, or too much drumming and simple guitar over the top. You know what I'm saying? To be enjoyable. Whereas I felt like This was a much more straightforward approach to all of the songs. You know, there was a little bit of heavy part during the verses. All the choruses were these nice, clean, soaring choruses with lots of clean vocals and some overdubs. I mentioned several times in there I was surprised that some of the songs didn't have as many vocal overdubs as I've heard Strid do in the past, and I actually liked that aspect of this. I feel like some of his vocal parts have gotten overly complex and overly complicated in the past, and I didn't necessarily feel that very much on Övergivenheten. So I think Övergivenheten is a good example for Strid's maturity as a vocalist, and definitely for executing the vocals in a way that I didn't find as annoying as I have found some of his vocals recently. I mentioned I am not a huge fan of Night Flight Orchestra, and one of the reasons for that is because of the sort of like hair metal sort of sounding vocals that he uses a lot. And I think that he's a fantastic vocalist, but I really do not enjoy that style of vocals, the like crazy high falsetto singing style. And so I think one of the reasons I do prefer sort of the earlier Soilwork in some regard is that I feel like Strid was much more comfortable using his lower to mid register voice, whereas now when he's doing clean vocals, I feel like a lot of it is mid to high register. And I feel like he's doing them so well, and probably the best he's done them on a Soilwork album on Övergivenheten. I really think that that's true. And there were a couple moments where he just went a little bit too much into the hair metal sort of style for me, but not very often. And one of the ways that they bring that back and you know, they get to the cusp of hair metal and then bring it back is still having the sort of screamy vocals underneath, the more rough, distorted vocals underneath. And I feel like that sort of grounds everything in the metal, the melodic Swedish death metal Soilwork style. You know, so there were definitely several songs that had guitar riffs that I felt like, wow, this would be right off of Stabbing the Drama, or wow, this would be more of a Vergleichen thing. And so there's definitely like a neat intermingling of all of their albums on this album. And I feel like, you know, the bass was pretty much a non-factor for me the entire album. I didn't really notice it ever. I never really had it. There were no parts of the song where I felt the bass was even something like the third or fourth thing that I would be paying attention to. So I will say that I don't think that the bass was handled in such a way that it was ever a featured or prominent instrument ever. And maybe the songs were just written that way, you know. But I think that when you clearly listen to Stabbing the Drama, and you listen to Orbit Culture, and you listen to the We Butter the Bread with Butter, you can tell, like, you can feel the kick more. You can feel those subsonic frequencies, but there's also a little bit more high frequencies to the kick. Now, I would not hesitate at all to say that all three of those albums have replaced kick, or if not necessarily replaced, at least additional kicks, because when you go through the process of drum replacing, you can still leave the sound that you recorded in the track. You can even have that be the most prominent thing you're hearing. But it's very common in any genre of music to add like that sort of like 808 thumpy sub frequency underneath every single kick hit, to just add that thump to it, that low subsonic frequency thump. Whereas they definitely did not do that, I don't think, with Övergivenheten. And if they did it, they didn't do it to an extent that I noticed it at all. I feel like it definitely sounded like the drums sounded the way they were when they were recorded, and that's just the way they kept them throughout the entire album. And so on one hand, I really, really appreciate that, because it is so much harder to take even very well recorded drums and make them sound good in context of a metal album. You know, it's so much easier to get guitars and bass and vocals to sound right than it is to get drums to sound right, because how the drums sound are going to basically fundamentally dictate the direction of how everything else sounds. If the kick sounds terrible, you can't have a good record. And I think that is evidenced by certain albums. I think of True Defiance by Demon Hunter comes to mind right away. I think that is by far Demon Hunter's worst album, and I cannot even sit down to this day and listen to it all the way through, because I believe the kick drum sounds so terrible on that album that I can't get past it to enjoy the songs, the songwriting, the guitars, any other aspect of that music, because the kick is so bad. And that is a case where the kick was definitely replaced. I know that for a fact. I actually talked to the drummer of Demon Hunter Yogi after one of their concerts. It was a very awesome, lucky thing I got to do. And we were talking about it a little bit. My friend who was with me at the time brought up the fact that I didn't like the drums. I think he did it on purpose to try to like make me look stupid or whatever in front of Demon Hunter's drummer. But I did get to talk to him about it, and he said he just kind of threw his hands up and was like, I don't know what they did with it after we were done recording. I know they replaced it all, so if it was a bad sample choice that they chose, that's on them. And he didn't say it in a way that was like giving blame. He was just saying that's what happened in the studio. And he said, I am not a studio engineer guy like that. I come in and I perform, and then after that, it's sort of out of his hands. And a lot of musicians are like that. But, I think that overall, now that I've heard the comparisons, which is maybe unfair because I don't do that for all my reactions, overall, I think the album, I have a much more positive outlook on the way the album sounds now that I've heard it compared to the other stuff in their catalog. I do not think it is the best sounding Soilwork album, even close at all. I think Övergivenheten sounds better. I think that Stabbing the Drama sounds better. I didn't do a sample of Sworn to the Great Divide, but I bet Sworn to a Great Divide would sound better. I would say maybe Natural Born Chaos would sound better, though I think Natural Born Chaos probably doesn't have replaced drums. You can tell, I'm sure, from listening to me how important the drums are to me. And I'm sorry if I'm going on too long about the production and everything, but to me that's the thing that's interesting. I think that the kick sounded very kind of weak almost the whole album, and I mentioned it right away, and it kind of stayed the same sounding the whole time, which makes sense. If you set the drum kit up, you record the entire album, all the drums for the entire album, and that's the foundation of the album, and everything gets built on top of those drum tracks. But the snare sounded almost like there was no snare to it. There was almost no snappiness, no crispiness to it. It was basically just the body of the snare. It almost sounded like the snares were turned off. And that's a very particular metal sound that is definitely much more associated with black metal, or, maybe a little bit more associated with, doom metal or something like that, Black Sabbath kind of thing. But their drums sounded much more raw, much more like something like you would hear on a Black Keys album rather than something you'd hear on like an In Flames album. I do know that In Flames does lots of drum replacement and stuff, and I think In Flames music is like some of the highest quality sounding metal that I've ever heard, so it's hard to compare those two things. Although the last two In Flames albums have not sounded as good as their albums before that, and I'm excited for this new one whenever that comes out, but I don't want to get too much into that. Lyrically, I said I looked at all the lyrics beforehand, and I'll just say in my looking at the lyrics, I don't really think the songs were really about much, and I am 100% okay with that. I do not need my songs I don't need to connect deeply and emotionally to the lyrics of the song. I'm here to connect to the music, and so that's why that's kind of what I talk about and focus about a lot more. I think that the songs were all long. They were given time to breathe. There was patience. I loved all of that. That kind of goes back to the structuring. I love the way that the album started with that, so the acoustic guitars. I mean, it was very cool. It felt very epic. And I was sort of hoping and expecting the album to be more like that throughout the whole album. But really, it was only the first track that was like that. The first track, which is Övergivenheten, that track and then Death, I Hear You Calling are the two most like standout, like different sounding tracks on the album. And I think that the Death Here, I Hear You Calling, that could have been a Night Flight Orchestra song. Just like straight up, that sounded like it could have been a Night Flight Orchestra song. And I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm really glad that it's here. I think when I listened to this album back a couple times, that may be one of my favorite songs. I really enjoyed Is It In Your Darkness. I feel that was the best chorus on the album. I loved how it got huge. I love how it was sing along with it. There were more layers of background vocals, I feel, but they were a little bit more maybe shouty and more like gang vocal feeling rather than just background vocals or harmony vocals. And then I actually really enjoyed Vultures as well. I think there was some different time signature stuff throughout the album that I thought was really nice. And that kind of stuff to me feels more like The Ride Majestic or like... actually, I can take these off. I should have thought of that a while ago. My ears are sweating. That kind of stuff to me feels more like the more technical stuff, the technical riffage. That feels more like Övergivenheten or The Ride Majestic or even getting into The Living Infinite. maybe even into the Panic broadcast as well. I feel like the difference, and I know Panic broadcast, Peter Witchers came back for that, but I feel like the sound that they got on Panic broadcast is really sort of their aim moving forward. You know, you can think about the Panic broadcast and Sworn to a Great Divide as sort of like a dividing line in their career, and everything before Sworn to a Great Divide and Sworn to a Great Divide sounded a particular way, even though there's lots of differences there. And everything since the Panic broadcast has sounded a little bit different. And maybe that changed a little bit at Vergleichenten and now Övergivenheten. I feel like these last two albums were a little bit more connected than I was anticipating them being. I will say I'm super disappointed that the female choir was listed, and there were two ladies who played cello. There was a backing female vocalist, or at least said voice or vocals. And then there was a lady who played, a guy who played banjo and acoustic guitar, and another lady who played violin as well. And I was expecting to hear those things throughout the album, and I really didn't. They were maybe more towards the front half of the album. And I expected like the last song to be this really epic long song, which how could you write a song called On the Wings of a Goddess Through Flaming Sheets of Rain and not have it be this big epic thing? And it was big and epic. However, I feel like the only reason it was epic was because of the length of the song. There was nothing in the arrangement of the song in terms of what was actually included in as a part of the song. Sonically, there was nothing in that song really to separate it from the more average songs on the album in terms of like there wasn't a lot of crazy strings. There was piano and there was that, you know, moment that started the song and that was in the middle as well. That was kind of like a little bell thing. That was really nice, but I was expecting a big sort of like maybe a fake string part and more of an epic feel to it, more of a symphonic metal feeling to it. And that was totally just my expectations of the album, and I think I totally was thinking wrong. The ladies' female choir, I am really disappointed that it wasn't utilized on any song other than in the intro of the very first song. Please let me know if I missed it somewhere else, but as far as I can tell, the only time that happened was in the intro of the very first song. And so that I'm disappointed in. I think that overall, I would say that I was expecting the album to be a little bit more and a little bit different. And I think one of the reasons for that was A Wisp of the Atlantic. That really surprised me, and it had more sort of like parts to it. Now, that was, I believe, something that they were trying to do that was much different, and they approached that differently than this album. So I was expecting that a little bit more. Didn't get that. Totally cool, though. That's just sort of my expectations. Overall, I'm really happy with this. I think that they did a fantastic job, and I'm, you know, really, really excited to listen to it again. So that's my sort of overall thoughts. I will definitely say at this moment that I think that this album will end up on my top 12 of the year. I'm going to have a lot of fun listening to this again multiple times, and I really need to listen to it in different locations. You know, listen to it, you know, on my portable CD player with these headphones. Listen to it maybe with earbuds once just to see what it sounds like. Listen to it in a car. You know, listen to it, you know, I don't know if I'll ever listen to it just through my laptop speakers or through my phone or anything. I don't know what that would really tell me. But it is interesting sometimes to listen to music that you love on really terrible speakers. That's something as an audio engineer you get taught, that when you're trying to master or mix something, you should listen to it on as many different kinds of speakers as possible so that you can try to make your mix sound as good everywhere as you can, as good as you can everywhere. And sometimes listening to something on as terrible speakers as you can, and then turning it down as low as you can before you barely hear it, and hearing what you hear. What do you perceive at that moment? You know, with metal, there's going to be lots of cymbals and guitars, especially white noisy sounding guitars, which is what we had a lot here. But that's a good way to tell if you're going to lose the vocals. You know, if the vocals get lost in the mix, they're probably not loud enough if you're listening to it really quietly. But anyway, that's just sort of a mixing thing. So I'm going to leave the video here for now. Hopefully, I have to apologize because I was a little flustered and thrown off. I was coughing a lot. I had to use a cough drop every now and then. I'd put it in my mouth, and I, would suck on it for a little while, then take it out, and I had to go get my water. And, I had my pop at first here, and so I have all sorts of moments where I was recording and stopped, and I have to keep going, so I don't know how long the video is going to be. Also, I tried really hard to not have a long intro on this, and I failed miserably at that. I talked way too long about Soilwork's entire catalog, but you can tell how excited I was, and hopefully the ability to skip through the video is sort of like overcomes that. But you know, I had to restart several times, and I had to do some conversations over almost a little bit because I wasn't happy with how everything was sounding. And so, you know, thank you very much for bearing with me on this. This is a really special, important video to me because Soilwork is such an special and important band to me, and so I wanted to do it justice. But I'm just happy that I at least finally got to hear the album and I can listen to it now. Sometimes it's tough to have these albums and know that I can't listen to them until I get to the point of doing the actual reaction. And because I have limited space and I can't leave my stuff set up all the time, I have to make it a point to say, I'm going to record a reaction, set everything up, and then do it. And sometimes I don't have the ability to set everything up and just go ahead and do it. So it's not like I can just, on a whim, do a reaction video. I have to set it up, take the time, do it, and then I have to, of course, edit the things. So, but anyway, that's just me sort of extending the video longer than it doesn't need to be. Thank you very much for watching. I have some cool stuff coming up on my channel here. Hopefully maybe some personal project stuff. I have to say shout out to the Impliers for being so awesome. The second most recent video on my channel, apart from the Muse one, was a reaction I did to a band called the Impliers. And it's not metal or anything at all, but I highly recommend checking it out. They're a very small, basically unknown band who released their debut album a few weeks ago, and I did a reaction to it on a whim. Like I said, I had my stuff set up, so I just did a reaction to it. And the guys from the band reached out to me and have been super, super awesome and nice. And I didn't know them. I still don't know them or anything like that. I had no clue who they were really when I did the video. So my opinion is all pure and clean and not, you know, not saying anything because I knew who they were or anything. But since then, they've reached out and they've been really super nice to me, and they were so grateful that I did the video. Totally different than, you know, Soilwork, who's a band that's huge and awesome. But, you know, really nice to feel appreciated and stuff like that. So if you want to check out a cool video on my channel, go check out the Impliers. I think the album is fantastic, and they deserve any praise that they ever get. So go check that out. And anyway, yeah, going on too long again. Like I said, I'll just leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.